Tuesday night to you, and thank you for joining us tonight here on the Newsfeed Late Night. I am Thabo Mdluli. The second term of learning is now underway after schools reopened on Monday, but things remain far from perfect, with multiple challenges still plaguing the Department of Basic Education, from infrastructure inadequacies to social ills such as bullying and other shortcomings like poor performance. Just how do education officials plan to mitigate all this? Well, tonight we delve into all these issues. We're joined by Limpopo Education MEC Poli Bushielo and her counterpart from KwaZulu-Natal, Gwazim Shengu, as well as Fundile Gade from the Eastern Cape. You're part of this conversation tonight as well by sending us your tweets at Newsroom 405, or otherwise send us your WhatsApp comments and questions to 072 110 5584. MECs, good evening and thank you for your time tonight.
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening. Good evening, Thabo.
I'll begin in Limpopo, MEC, as we speak right now. The thorny issue of infrastructure is one that possibly will see you back in court, because since, I suppose, the whole matter started a while back of the eradication of unsavory structures, that target has not been met. The question is, does it have to take civil society taking you to court for you to be able to do what you are essentially required to do in law?
Thank you very much, Thabo. It doesn't necessarily have to be in court to get the information. If they could have written to me and requested me to give them the update of where we are in terms of eradicating pit latrines, I would have given them. If you notice, there are pit latrines in KwaZulu-Natal, there are pit latrines in Eastern Cape. Why did they choose only Limpopo to go to court? You must just ask yourself. It's because they came to me and said they want me to appoint them to monitor the pit latrines, and I said we don't have a process in government where we monitor NGO, we appoint NGO to monitor us. That is why you see them not taking KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape to court. But let me just give information so that people can know. In Limpopo, we have a backlog of 515. 300 are busy done by the National Department of Basic Education, and we are doing 215. Where we are at the moment, 129 schools are under construction in terms of the toilets, and 33 have reached a practical completion achieved. 7 days dispute with contractors, and 46 bids have been re-advertised, because if you remember, because of COVID, some business could not cope. So they came back to us and gave us our letters back to say, MEC, we can't cope and we don't want to delay the process. We know how urgent this matter is. So they've given us the letter, so we have re-advertised them. Yeah. So if they would come to me, I would have given them the information. Besides that, we were under lockdown for almost 5 months without doing anything, but we were able to achieve this. As far as the Department of Basic Education are concerned, they've done more than 100 as we are talking, and almost 198 or so are left, and we are definitely sure that very soon will be finished if we don't go to third wave. So they don't have to come to court. So let them come to the department.
The big question then is, do you give them those plans? Because they are going to court and they're saying to the court, you are non-compliant with the court order that was issued, I think, as early as when the Komape matter came to the fore, and they've been challenging this in court. They're saying still up until today, they are not getting a coherent, a straightforward, a concrete plan of implementation. For example, on the audit, which you've just given me now, by the way, I don't know whether this is information that you've given them, the audit of exactly how many schools are you actually planning to upgrade, and how long it's going to take.
As I said, Thabo, they don't have to go to court. They just have to come to my office, and I will sit down and give them this information. I will even give them the names of the schools. They can go there and monitor them. They can go, because the DBE is also cited. They can also go to the DBE and get the information. That is why I'm saying, ask yourself, why are they taking only Limpopo province and not Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal because we are in the same situation.
Well, we'll ask
It's
Eastern
because
Cape and
I refuse
KwaZulu-Natal
to appoint.
because we've got their numbers as well and their audits. But let's continue a little bit with you then. Talk to me about the Mukwasele Primary School. That's the big issue that's coming up in the court papers, that according to your plan that you're submitting to them, it's indicating that pit toilet eradication there could be complete anywhere between now and 2031. I mean, will it take that long to eradicate 8 pit toilets?
Thabo, as I said, you can also even send somebody tomorrow in my office. I will give you the list of 129 schools that are under construction. I will give you the list of 33 schools that have been completed. And I will give you the names of the 7 contractors that have disputed, and also I will give you the 46 bids that have been re-advertised. I don't want us to just talk who said this and whatever and whatever. Let them come to my office. I will give them you can also come to my office, Thabo. You are welcomed. Let's talk on facts. Yeah. Let's talk on what we are doing.
You're saying it's not fact that Mukwasele Primary School will be completed by 2031?
No, it's not a fact.
When will it be completed?
We are envisaging that all the 250 will be completed at least by the end of March 2022.
Mshengu, you said
nobody ever talked about 2030. That one is the NDP, I think, goals.
All right, let's bring in the MEC for Education in KwaZulu-Natal. Mshengu, last year you were speaking of hitting a target of 600 by the end of December, the eradication of pit toilets. This, of course, considering that 500 million of your budget had to be taken back for reprioritization for COVID spend. Have you hit that target?
No, we have not made the target, Thabo, precisely because of the disruption that we experienced as a result of COVID-19. We all know that during the different levels of the research asset strategy, some of the construction companies were not allowed to work. What we have in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the audit gave us a number of 1,370 pit latrines across the province, which we needed to eradicate. I can confirm now that 425 have been completely eradicated. The projects have been completed. 500 are currently on the construction stage, and the other remaining part is done by the National Department of Basic Education. So we are indeed anticipating that at least by end of this financial year, we'll have met our target, and probably remaining with a very few, if any, of the pit latrines toilets, obviously, because, depending on the pace of the contractors that would have been awarded to do such work, and other disruptions that we have to take into account. But our intention is that by end of next year, there shouldn't be any school in the province of KwaZulu-Natal that still has pit latrines.
Opposition parties are charging you with failure to prioritize. I think the last conversation I had with you was around certain schools that you were going to close down due to non-performance so that they merge with other schools. Now, the opposition is saying that among the list of those schools that are going to be refurbished, you've got those schools which you have closed down. Is that true?
No, it's not true. In fact, we're not closing any school because of poor performance. The schools that we close are as a result of a declined enrollment, not poor performance.
Indeed.
Because of the movement of people from one area to another, and our schools are left deserted, and therefore we're closing those schools. In fact, there are 53 schools that had pit latrines, which we have closed down. And in the reports that we submitted into the legislature, we have indicated that we have removed those schools from the list of the identified schools where we had to eradicate pit latrines, because they are now closed and therefore will no longer benefit in this particular project. So the issue of the failure to prioritize probably is as a result of our different understanding of what should be prioritized.
Now, there are 2 areas that are currently being cited where the servicing of the temporary mobile toilets is a challenge. One is the Empangeni school, where There were videos, in fact, what were even presented to the legislature, if I'm not mistaken, of maggot-infested mobile toilets. There's another one in Mzimkhulu as well that has not seen the service that it's supposed to get, as far as I think you said every 2 weeks that they get cleaned.
In fact, with regard to the Empangeni school, what happened there is that there's a contractor on site that is building new toilets. And what the contractor did was actually to provide temporary toilets, chemical toilets, while he is completing the brick and mortar one, which we contracted him to do. But he failed indeed to service those chemical toilets, and we had to take him to task to say this is not going to be allowed in the department. As a result, that matter was resolved. He did apologize to the department because of some negligence, as he was citing as reasons for failure to what we call to service those chemical toilets. With regard to Mzimkhulu one, we had to terminate because we have taken a very clear stance as a department that when we contract you to do work, you must do as per the agreement. And if you fail to do so, we cannot shoulder the responsibility of business people who make profit, but when things go wrong, we are to be blamed as a department. So we can't carry blame for other people. With regard to that school, indeed the contractor had failed to service the chemical toilets, and the decision was to terminate and get a new contractor who was going to be fit for purpose.
And was the implementing agent paid?
Obviously, the contractor had been on site for quite a number of months, as it were. But for the months in which he had failed to service those chemical toilets, we did not pay as a department because we could not pay for shoddy work, as was the case. That is why we had to terminate immediately and list the services of another contract who was going to do according to specifications.
So the sector report by Equal Education, I think it comes from the Department of Education, also reporting on this infrastructure development, indicates that you are making payments without making sure that the implementation agents are doing what they are called to do, and therefore holding them accountable. Because once you've paid them, I mean, the only recourse you have now is to try and get that money back. Is that what's happening?
Well, we'll challenge them to give us proof of that. Some of these pressure groups, they make scurrilous allegations, sometimes based on fictitious reports that are not true. At some stage we are accused as a department of having procured water tanks for exorbitant amounts and all of that, but the SIU came and cleared the department. And again, if anyone says we are paying before we verify the services rendered, we can only say give us proof of that, because in our view it doesn't happen. There are service providers who are still not paid now by the department because they have not completed the verification process of what they installed in our school in June last year. And we are saying to them, we're not going to pay you as long as you don't cooperate with the verification process which we're undertaking as a department. So if that pressure group has evidence to the contrary of what I'm saying, they are welcome to give us that proof, or even approach the oversight committees to present that proof.
We continue with the thorny issue of infrastructure development in the Eastern Cape next, where 1,598 pit latrines still exist. The MEC standing by to give us what is being done to address that. You can give us your views, by the way, at Newsroom 405. Otherwise, WhatsApp your questions and comments, 072-110-5584. The Newsfeed Late Night continues next. Newsfeed Late Night continues for you now, joined by MECs from Limpopo, as well as KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. We're talking education sector and the thorny issues that plague this sector. We begin with, of course, infrastructure, and that's what we are looking at now. MEC for the Education Department in the Eastern Cape, Fundile Gadi. MEC, good evening, and thank you for your time as well tonight. Let's talk then about what the numbers are telling us. 1,090 schools without electricity. You brought that number down to about 87. 74 are still without water. But most importantly, 1,598 still using pit latrine toilets. What are the plans for wiping out these backlogs?
No, thanks, Thabo, and viewers generally in the country in total. We have been identified as one of the provinces that are in backlog of 1598 inadequate sanitation and water in schools. Out of that, we have been allocated 262 schools that must be attended by 2020 financial year. We have been able to complete 126 out of that 262, and 82 is still under construction in the main. We have got a problem around finishing the entire 1,598, as I could give you the breakdown now, precisely because of the financial constraints that we have out of the COVID-related budgetary constraints that we experience generally as a sector. So from last year up until now, we've been able to complete 126. We have given ourselves, by the way, to complete the 1,598 in a space of 2 years. That's the commitment that we've made through the DPE and as also with the service providers that we are working with in that particular space.
How exactly are you planning to do that? Because, I mean, if so far you can only promise us 126, surely you would agree that when you look at the norms and standards that need to be in schools, they need to be readily implemented. And if you're saying you can only give us 126 now, it would be unconstitutional to still expect kids who we know now literally die in these pit toilets to actually continue to attend schools in such conditions.
Yes, Thabo, it's quite a bit of a hybrid kind of an assessment, because in our own assessment we've picked up that some of the schools in that 1,598, 728 of them, by the way, should have undergone a closure and measure, but precisely because there were consultation between the department and the communities involved, we were a bit sluggish in terms of closing them, precisely because we don't want to close schools without a proper planning of the infrastructure that is going to be required whenever one gazetted and closed schools, like your road network system, your transport in terms of scholar transport. We then said, no, it's fine. Within the space that we've given ourselves now, we'll be able to clean up that data and ensure that we eradicate those unsafe pit latrine toilets, but at the same time, deal with the issue of the alignment of schools, rationalization and measure of them, so that you refuse to have schools that are not productive in terms of content and quality in the education sector in the province.
Right, let's look at specific schools then in Mvaba, Mvuzo, as well as Mtumgo. I think that's how you pronounce it. There are issues there of being able to clean those particular toilets. In fact, Mvuzo, assessment was done, pit toilets were destroyed, but since 2018, they're saying all they're getting from the department is empty promises.
Yes, you will always experience that from the province for a number of reasons. For example, as I'm speaking with you now, we experience a storm in schools of about 64 of them in November. And 10 of them has been completed already. The 54 of them are in a process of being finished end of June. So that's the experience that you will forever be getting because you express, whilst you are trying to close up any loophole in relation to the backlogs you have, there comes another challenge like the disaster that I'm just talking about now, which have actually taken us back to reprioritize the plans that we have, so that we can deal with the disaster schools that we have, 54 of them. Precisely because...
But MEC, my question is a little bit different to that. I'm not talking about disaster. I'm talking about Mvuzo specifically, where you went, you did an assessment, you said the pit toilets are not suitable, and you told them to destroy them. They were destroyed. Since 2018, new ones have not been built. What is the challenge?
Yes, they are part of the 81 schools that are under construction in the main. The ones that should have been finished but destabilized and obstructed by the COVID-19 that we experienced in 2020. So I'm aware of the issue that you are raising about that school of Tsofimbaba, Dabo.
And as far as Mkungo, a junior secondary school, they've lost hope as far as that particular matter is concerned. In fact, implementing agents there are said to have received money and have not delivered anything.
I'm not aware, I must be honest to you, I'm not aware of that case. Where we have got issues of payments in advance, that has long time ago been stopped in the provincial government space. And if that is the case, then of course we'll have to look very closely to that. But from where I'm seated, there is no advance payment of any implementing agency in the infrastructure development of the province ever since I arrived in the office.
Let's look at the other issue then that we are dealing with in our schools, and I go back to Limpopo. That is the issue, of course, of violence and bullying in our schools. Unfortunately, all the provinces represented here today, you have your own issues that you are dealing with. But let's look a little bit into what's happening in Limpopo. MEC, is reporting the cases to the South African police the only way to resolve the matter at this particular point? Because the South African Human Rights Commission in Limpopo went into Mbiri Secondary School and they found that the response by the school was inadequate.
Okay, Tabo, no, you are definitely correct. It can't be the only way. In terms of the human rights, they've said to me, MEC, we are doing our investigation and we'll give you the report so that you can be able to take action. So let me wait for that official report and I will be able to take action. What we are doing as the province, we are working together with the Department of Health and the Department of Social Development, where we are offering counseling service and psychology services to schools where we pick up the problem, but also to learners who have problems. We are trying to get a toll-free number where they can phone and say their problem, because it is true some can't approach their teachers or their principals. And we have met also with the pastors' forums, the traditional authorities, the SAPS, the NECT, the Learners Formations, Civic Association, and other strategic partners, including the SGBs and the associations and the trade union, to say together, what can we do in order to assist our learners, because they seem to be in distress and they need us to assist them. I think one of also the contributing factor is that in terms of the rotational timetable that we have, sometimes they come to school twice a week and then the rest of the time they are at home and not doing anything. And then when they come the next time, there's some friction, others can't even cope. So we are trying to come together to say, how do we assist our learners to be able to cope with the work that they have? But also, we have to be very tough on bullying. That is why we made sure that all the cases where there was violence, we made sure that we opened cases and the perpetrators are appearing in court. But also you'll agree with us that the perpetrators are also learners, they are also minors, they would need some assistance. I don't think a learner can just wake up and try to beat something and somebody and commit suicide and then take it lightly. Actually, the police were telling me that learner, the 15-year-old of Mbilwi, who was arrested there, was put under a suicide attack. So suicide watch. So you can see that they also need assistance. Also, their parents would want some assistance because for sure they are asking themselves, why should their children do that? So we are taking a strong stand as Limpopo in terms of bullying. But also in our schools, we have code of conducts where if there is a bullying, there are processes that must be followed. You can't say when learners are playing and then the other one steal a pen, then we must then rush to court or we must do. There are ways that they are dealing with this. So SGBs together with SMTs must be able to make sure that bullying is not allowed. But as the Department of Education in Limpopo, we have taken an exception in terms of bullying, and we have shown it that we don't want it to happen. But we need to also assist the perpetrators because the main aim is not to destroy, but to build.
Mshengu, the issue of bullying gaining momentum also in your province. And what's particularly perplexing here, I suppose maybe perplexing for me, and you'll tell me what your view is that it's finding its center particularly in schools. A 16-year-old schoolgirl just now recently given a community-based sentence of 12 months in KZN. When we come back to you after the break, I want you to give me your thoughts on what the solution is for solving bullying in our schools. The Newsfeed Late Night continues in a moment. We'll take your WhatsApp messages as well coming through tonight for the MECs at 072-110-5584. Otherwise, tweets at Newsroom405. The Newsfeed Late Night continues next. Conversation tonight on the Newsfeed Late Night with Limpopo Education MEC Poli Bushielo, her counterpart from KwaZulu-Natal, Mshengu, and Fundile Gade from the Eastern Cape, and of course taking your views and your thoughts tonight as well on WhatsApp 072-110-5584. We've got a couple of messages to get through tonight before the end of this conversation. But Mshengu, let's bring you in. As I mentioned, as the situation in Limpopo was unfolding, also a sentence was just given to a 16-year-old young girl in KwaZulu-Natal. It's a community-based kind of sentence for the next 12 months. What do you think are the solutions to the bullying problems that is clearly gaining momentum in the country?
Well, I think firstly, we have developed a view that says these are no longer bullying incidences, but we're witnessing savage attacks that are happening in our schools. And at times we do believe that they are a reflection of how troubled our communities have become, and some of the families, institutions as it were, because these strange behaviors, they are learned somewhere else outside the schooling premises, and unfortunately they are experienced within the schooling environment, and therefore it becomes our responsibility to deal with them as Department of Education. But we will not win this battle outside the community involvement, to make sure that our families, our communities, they also guard against exposing the young ones to these kind of behaviors, as the case may be. But we have also called upon our schools to ensure that they don't hesitate in enforcing the code of conduct, because we believe that learners should not only be taught what is wrong and what is right, but they must also fear to do that which is wrong. And that is the only way we can actually make a dent in curbing this particular sketch. That is why we support stern measures that are taken by schools to ensure that they curb these savage attacks that are happening in our schools. As a department, we have also been assisting families of the victims to open cases. The case that we are referring to, where now there's a judgment by the court directing the perpetrator to do community work or community service under the supervision of the office of the court, including publicly apologizing to the victim. But we have also said to schools, make sure that you administer stern consequences against the perpetrators, while we have to also assist them through other means such as working with DSD, psychologists, and other help that may be necessary. But we must make it, learners must fear to do that which is known to be wrong. It must not be easy for someone to say, I can attack this particular learner and I will escape with impunity. And our schools have been called to administer such a stern support. And we're happy to say we are getting a positive feedback from our schools to say, indeed, we are acting decisively. And the support that we get from parents, including parents of the perpetrators, to say, but my child, this is not what we're taught at home. So I don't understand the behavior that now we are associated with. Yeah. So we are actually hoping that the entire society and communities where we come from will also rise up and protect the learners, because such behavior is learned within our communities.
MEC Gade, you have a particularly complex one, because the bullying incidents in Gqeberha actually happened online. It was a case of cyberbullying that you're dealing with, and measures to curb this proliferation of these images on social media. We need the technology. Many are arguing that we can't necessarily say ban all technology in schools. What's your view?
Yes, thanks, Thabo. I think we have two-pronged approach on the matter. One is that we are of the view that it is going to be important for generally the country to look very closely on the new trends, as MEC Mshingo has actually alluded into. One, to link each and every school with the nearby police stations, so that we can stabilize the families first and foremost as a country. I have a strong view that we have got a problem in terms of stability from a family point of view. Before we go to social media and other related advanced technological aspects and devices, we just needed to give clarity in terms of value systems that the country must be able to endure and the country must be able to share, so that we can develop responsible citizens out of the young people that we have in our institutions of learning. That's one. The second aspect is that we have of course, as a province, developed a policy on how to deal with issues relating to social media in schools, and also the usage of the gadgets. Because at times you could see that part of the crisis or the demise in education as a mirror of society in general is this wide open right of learners to do things without a responsibility attached to it. So that is one area that we are tightening it up, so that we can be able to close shop on any behavior that is unbecoming in our institutions of learning. So that's one area, and I can safely say, because we are a digital society now, we had to comply with the international standards that, of course, education as a sector has to respond to. So it is unavoidable to utilize the digital devices. But what is needed of utmost best from the people with responsibilities, like educators and also the learners in that particular environment, is to be orientated better how to deal with these kind of unbecoming behaviors,
right,
and how to ensure that we live to the expectations of the policies that we have developed in the institutions of learning that we have.
MECs, some questions coming through on WhatsApp. This one from Lorna in Mthatha. It's for you then, MEC Gade. Can you ask the MEC about the program of EA and GSA? Will it be extended?
Yes, Thabo, we have been given a leverage by the presidency in the country. Remember, the EAs and GSAs are a project of the presidency in the country. We receive grant system as basic education through the stimulus fund that the presidency has given the Department of Basic Education in the country. Out of the process that we have been given, we have been able to secure 55,803 young people that have been employed in the province. Unfortunately, their contracts were ending on the 31st of March, but because of the diligence and durability that we have been able to exercise, we then got the money to extend them to the 30th of April. Now we are busy engaging the National Treasury generally as a country on basic education to look very closely on the importance of the EAs in our institutions of learning, not in the province, but generally in the country, because they've helped a lot in terms of logistic management and administrative functions that our institutions were requiring, but because of the shortfalls on the post-provisioning norm that our schools were not getting. So I can safely say the submission by DPE is on the desk of the National Treasury now. We are expecting them to respond within a short space of time, and provinces will be given guidance by the Minister, Mamu Enji, in the Ministry of Basic Education accordingly.
MEC Bushielo, you are lamenting the laziness of teachers and taverns in close proximity to schools that have affected the performance of the schools. What are you doing about it?
Let me just also correct you. I didn't lament the laziness of teachers. If you have read the article, it was just a heading, but we're able to refute it and then put the record straight. But what I agree with you is that we have raised a concern that we can't have shebeens and taverns next to our schools, because as soon as the schools are on around 9 or 10, they put the music loud, and as a result, you know, children, when they go for break, they never come back, and it doesn't help us at all. Some of the things that they do over the weekend, some schools in Bolobedu, they were telling me that they have what they call Thursday for ladies. So this learners will come to school, the ladies will come to school on Thursday carrying changing clothes, and they will only go back home on Monday. So from Thursday to Monday, they'll be at the tavern, dancing there, drinking whatever they're drinking and abusing the substances. So we are discussing with the MEC for Economic Development to say they must be enforceable in terms of the taverns that are next to school. They must be closed.
You are, of course, pioneering a program where you are linking tertiary institutions to high schools to prepare the learners, particularly around maths and science. Give us more on that program.
Well, Tabo, our view is that there should be a seamless transition between basic education, higher education, as well as the industries. So what we produce at a basic level should be easily accepted and comply with the demands of the higher education as well as the future in the industries as the case. What we have noticed is that there seem to be gaps in terms of the curriculum and how we do things between basic education as well as higher education. If I were to give an example, we are now, in fact, we have started a process of introducing a number of subjects which we believe accord with the demands of the present as well as of the future industries. The demands that are in line with what is known to be the fourth industrial revolution. But when we introduce them, we have found a situation where there are no qualified educators to teach those particular subjects because they are not offered as subject within B.Ed in the higher institutions. Yet there are subjects that will equip our learners with skills and competencies that are of demand in terms of the current as well as the future industries. So we have taken a decision and a view which is supported by the Premier of the province that let's engage with higher institutions so that we influence each other's curriculum, so that it talks to one another as well as the expectation of the future industry. And that project is proceeding well under the guidance of the Human Resource Development Council as chaired by the Premier of the province.
MECs, we appreciate your time and thank you very much for joining us tonight here on the Newsfeed Late Night. Those are the MECs for education in Limpopo, KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the Eastern Cape. Thank you as well for your engagement. Time always the enemy when it comes to these questions that we want to put through to the MECs. We'll have them back with more of your questions. The news